So, suffering refers to an experience of unpleasantness, discomfort, and pain. Suffering is often associated with threats to human existence or the lack of pleasure or happiness in life. Physical suffering refers to physical sensations such as discomfort, hunger, distress, and pain. Physical suffering is often caused by injury, disease, and the lack of basic needs. Meanwhile, mental suffering is associated with emotional and mental states such as depression, anxiety, fear, loneliness, and grief. This may be caused by unexpected situations in life, such as sudden change in lifestyle, loss of employment, stressful situation, and grief caused by the death of a loved one. So suffering can also be caused by the conflict between one's notion of a perfect world and the actual state of the world he lives in, leading to anxiety,
uncertainty, and dread.
And philosophers have come up various terms to define this very condition. Walsmer's is the term used to refer to man's realization that the world can never live up to the ideal perfect world, resulting the feelings of sadness or apathy. Angst refers to fear and anxiety, and philosophers relate this to feelings existential dread, which is a crisis brought about when a person begins to question his purpose and reason for being. Ennui is the feeling of weariness and discontent brought about by a lack of interest or intense boredom with the world. So people normally experience situations of adversity and difficulties in life, and how one deals with them is often determined by their mindset regarding suffering. Philosophical investigations into the nature and purpose of human suffering have yielded various insights into the nature of human existence and the role suffering and adversity play in shaping human experience. What role does suffering play in human life? There are two major philosophical views regarding human suffering. The first view considers suffering as an undesirable human condition and that humans naturally seek pleasure and avoid pain. So the second major perspective states that suffering is essential because it defines human existence. Without it, man is unable to grow and improve, and his positive experiences loses meaning and significance. So philosophical discussions in the first perspective often focus on the various means that suffering can be avoided or eliminated entirely from life. So the ancient Greek philosophers believed that suffering can be avoided by seeking pleasurable things or activities or through the exercise of self-control. So during the 17th century, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer proposed a view of a world controlled by chaotic forces that bring about human suffering. And this is the pessimistic view, which believes that human existence is characterized by suffering caused by man's inability to meet his unlimited wants and desires. Schopenhauer believes, however, that man is able to address the chaos and suffering in the world by focusing on the aesthetics and morality. Man therefore must strive to maintain beauty, order, and righteousness in this world. Schopenhauer's views were mostly influenced by Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhism. Buddhist philosophy considers suffering as a defining feature of human existence. The Four Noble Truths propose that human suffering is caused by desire, and that suffering will only end through the elimination of worldly desires. Hinduism, meanwhile, believes that suffering is closely tied to spiritual progress and that all suffering ends when a person attains enlightenment. And German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believes that certain forms of suffering for Nietzsche can be beneficial and can result in personal growth and development. He also views suffering as a test of a person's worth. Man therefore should accept and embrace suffering as an important component of life. George Sifler's view on life experiences considers suffering as one of many interrelated elements that define the meaning of experiences throughout life. For him, suffering and happiness go hand in hand in defining a person's views on his life experiences, and a balance between positive and negative experiences will result in a well-adjusted functional sense of reality, which will lead to confusion and anxiety. For instance, a person who has known only suffering and unhappiness all his life will find it difficult to comprehend the concept of happiness, or will find an act of kindness bewildering. On the other hand, a person who has experienced only pleasure and happiness for most of his life will be greatly distressed and confused when confronted with adversities and trials. Theologians also pondered on the concepts of human suffering and related it to God's providence. Theodicy is the philosophical branch which tries to reconcile the existence of a benevolent, all-good God with the reality of suffering in the world. If there is a good God who can do anything, why is there suffering? That's the question they try to resolve. So, early theologians such as Irenaeus of Lyons believes that suffering is a consequence of free will and that it is necessary to achieve moral perfection. Origen considers the world as a school and hospital for soul, where suffering plays a role in educating and healing the person. Meanwhile, Christian theology considers suffering as a means to achieve a higher meaning in life. So Christ's suffering, for example, is considered highly significant to God's plan for humankind's salvation. So how should one face suffering and adversities in life? Peoples experience suffering in various forms and at different levels throughout life. The most common everyday adversity that most people face includes stress, anxiety, or disappointment. Major life changes that bring about suffering and great adversity are job loss, accidents, disease, or death of a loved one. However small or large life's adversities may be, there are ways of coping with these changes. Coping refers to the means that a person employs in dealing with difficult life situations and involves a conscious effort to solve personal and interpersonal problems. Coping also entails identifying sources of stress and conflict and devising means to tolerate or minimize their effects. Coping with life's difficulties can be done through various means. Ways of coping can range from positive means such as anticipating and preparing for stress, seeking support from other people, and implementing stress management through physical activity, relaxation, constructive emotional release, and humor. Others, however, cope with adversity through negative means such as withdrawal, avoidance, and escapism. Various philosophers have suggested ways of dealing with suffering in the world. Epicureans believe that suffering can be avoided by seeking only the pleasurable things in life and avoiding those that cause harm or pain. Meanwhile, Stoics believe that one must face difficulties in life with fortitude and patience. Nietzsche's views on human suffering emphasize the individual's role in making sense of adversity. When faced with difficulties, a person should not blame other people or look at external factors to explain his suffering. Rather, a person should face his suffering and take responsibility for it. Utilitarian philosophers suggest that in order to achieve or in order to alleviate suffering in the world, people should focus on action that are beneficial to society. This is supported by humanitarianism, which believes that the purpose of a person's existence is to make other people happy. Man's interaction with others, driven by benevolence or goodwill, is a source of happiness that eases the suffering world. The social aspect of dealing with suffering and adversity is underscored in various studies that determine that people recover from traumatic experiences more quickly if adequate social support is available. A person is able to deal with stress and difficulties better if he knows that people around him are willing and able to lend their support. This is the reason why people who have gone through great adversity are encouraged to participate in support groups. For Filipinos, the family is the main source of emotional support in times of crisis. And another significant source of support in times of difficulties is the peer group. People find effective support from their peers because they often have the same background and experiences, and their shared views often lead to good advice. Religious groups are also another important support in times of crisis, as faith and prayer offer opportunities for reflection and sympathy which are needed during times of crisis. On paper, I am Roman Catholic, and in belief I lean more on agnosticism, but religion is really an important aspect of society because it is the pillar people can lean on in this chaotic world. Other groups that can support you are professionals. It includes counselors, psychologists, doctors, and more. There's bad stigma of visiting them, but it is one of the most rational things to do. Though I agree that it can be tough, but there's nothing wrong with it. What other people think does not matter. For me, only the opinions of few important people matters in life. Of course, it is still important to listen to other people.